Yeah. And welcome to Literary as Feck, where we're talking books. And today's book is what's Nick doing there? Yes, The Ninth Configuration by William Peter Blatty. Not quite sure what Nick's doing. Hope he stops it soon.
Yeah, he will.
And that's my.
Oh, you have an actual paperback copy. Nice.
I do. Yeah, so I'm Clive and he's Nick. Get that out of the way. And you know who we are by now.
Or you don't. You've somehow stumped because you're a huge fan of this movie. This I should say there is a movie. We'll get to that in a moment. There is a movie which maybe more people might know than the book. But
right.
But yes, or you're a huge Exorcist fan who's just stumbled into this and already turned it off.
Yeah, because of that fucking thing you were doing.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, so William Peter Blatty, yes, most well known, of course, for The Exorcist, and the novel that also turned into again a film that more people might have read than the book. Although the book was a pretty big bestseller.
It was a big success
back
as
in
well.
its
Yeah.
day. And also, what might be the case here as well is a better film than it is a book.
Yes, yeah, I would agree. Although it's been a while since I've seen either read or seen The Exorcist, but I do remember thinking that the book wasn't as good as the movie.
William Peter Blatty kind of seems to have started his writing career as a comedy writer, right? Most famously writing the Peter Sellers Inspector Clouseau film, A Shot in the Dark.
Right.
Yeah, and a few other bits and pieces, and then hitting it big with The Exorcist, and then kind of turning to more serious themes of he's a devout Catholic.
Right? Yes. Yeah.
And he is a believer.
Yes. Yeah. Although what's strange is that this. So I mean, we should probably bring up the fact that this book was written before The Exorcist, under another title.
Yes.
And then sort of retroactively.
Killer Kane, right? Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane in 1966.
Right.
Which to be honest, I haven't read that, so I'm not quite sure how similar it is to this version or dissimilar.
Mm-hmm.
Did you happen to?
No. And I don't know how easy it is to even find. And so anyway, but yeah, so because this is his preferred version, he went back and reworked the novel and made some more explicit connections to The Exorcist. But I wondered if the original one wasn't more comedy, because in a way this does work as a kind of a madcap comedy to a degree, and that's one interesting issue I had when going to the movie, was that until quite near the end of this read almost as a kind of a comedy to me, like a very black comedy maybe, but then in the movie it felt like from the very first scene it was like, oh no, they're setting this up as much more weighty and much more serious in a way, and the madness of the various protagonists isn't played for comedy that much. Occasionally it is in the movie, but a lot of it is kind of, there's a certain element of tension in all of it that didn't necessarily come off the page to me when I read it first.
Yes, apparently it started because I listened to the commentary track on the film as well. He speaks to fan Mark Kermode about it, and I think there was also a play that he was working on, or he was commissioned to write a play about something, but then it went off in another direction, and it became Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane, and I think as well, pre-Exorcist, William Friedkin had wanted to do a film version of that first, but they couldn't get it together with any stewardship or anything. So it's a long gestation period, and as well, it seems, well, he says flat out, I think William Peter Blatty is most proud of certainly the film more than anything else he's done. I think that's
right.
That's the thing he wants to be remembered for, maybe more so than The Exorcist, right?
Right.
So yeah, so the setup is basically it's late in the Vietnam War, and there seems to be a record number of military personnel who seem to have gone nuts, right? Basically.
Right. Yes,
and
yes. They've had some sort of breakdowns, or I mean, the question at the beginning of the book and so the movie is, or they have faked having mental breakdowns of in order to escape combat.
So they've set up a series of like these research kind of groups, and the most experimental of them is this one that's supposed to
build a giant castle in northwest. Yeah, so somewhere in Seattle or outside of Seattle in the forest, this massive Germanic looking. It's fantastic. The idea is great in the book, but it's so much better to see it in the movie.
Well, I was just wondering, like, it's such a strange, like, how many castles are there in the Pacific Northwest? Like, I don't think Native Americans built many.
No, I got the idea that it was supposed to have been like one of those things like Nicolas Cage, like shipping it over brick by brick from Bavaria and rebuilding it in the middle of the Pacific Northwest.
So anyway, and so there's a bunch of these crazy or not, or possibly just malingerers.
Yep.
Right. And there's the guy kind of in charge of the whole thing is the Kane of the brother of it. It gets slightly convoluted, but basically there's a guy who's overseeing the whole thing, and he's very accommodating, right? He's very
he's almost he's like a very much a Jesus type of figure, like a turn the other cheek and a take, like So it's interesting. I feel like we can't talk about this without spoilers. Sometimes I feel like we can, and this is not a case where I think you can't talk about this book or movie without spoiling it. So
go away and
big spoiler alert.
Yes.
This is worth
there we go.
This is worth reading, and it's also worth watching. And I might almost suggest doing what I did, which was to read it first. And I assume you had seen the movie before you read the book, so you would have known.
I have a very specific reason that we're talking about this now, actually. So yes, I had seen the film many years ago. I very much enjoyed it, and then had thought, I'd like to read the source novel sometime. It's on the long list of things that we might do on this show, right? But didn't necessarily feel, it wasn't, I'll get to it kind of thing, right? Or we'll get to it. And then I recently watched a film called Castle Keep.
Okay.
Starring blanking on the name. He's in all those Robert Aldrich movies, like Apache, Ulzana's Raid. Great Burt Lancaster.
Okay.
So Burt Lancaster in an eye patch is in charge of this squad of troops during the Battle of the Bulge.
Okay.
In World War II. And they commandeer a castle. And basically, the idea is that they're kind of setting up some defense for the oncoming German invasion of this French-Belgian kind of area, right? And each of the people in his squad seem to be a little bit nuts, including Peter Falk as like a baker who goes off into the village and opens up a bakery with a baker's widow, and it's all very, very strange. Plus Scott Wilson, who is in the 9th configuration.
Okay, plays Billy Culshaw. Okay, or Cutshaw, sorry.
And Scott Wilson plays another crazy guy who seems to have an autoerotic fixation with the Volkswagen Beetle. Like in love with a car.
When was this made?
Late 60s, I think. And it's based on a novel as well by a Battle of the Bulge veteran. I haven't read the novel, but the thing is, while I was watching Castle Keep, which is a kind of an interesting, odd major video film, the combination of crazy people in an European castle plus Scott Wilson,
right, put you in mind of
thinking, was this a influence on the Ninth Configuration?
Right.
So I thought, okay, well, now that this is my time, you know, I might as well rewatch and read. So that's why we're doing it now, is because I was trying to figure out whether Castle Keep was difficult to tell. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's kind of like the tone of it is where the Castle Keep's got a really interesting cast as well. You've also got Bruce Derners in it.
Oh yes,
as a
always intense,
conscientious objector, with a group of people who go around singing hymns in the village instead of fighting, and a lot of strange things happen. And it was shot. I think it was shot somewhere like in Yugoslavia or somewhere. So you have these awesome scenes of real tanks like just driving through real old buildings and it's an interesting movie. I would recommend Castle Keep. It's a very strange little film. Recently been a Blu-ray release as well.
When was The Dirty Dozen made?
67.
Okay, yeah, it's got, you know, obviously that's a much more studio, you know, kind of, but even so, like Telly Savalas's sweaty child murderer, like sex creep, you know, like there's stuff about that movie that's also interesting for what on the one hand is supposed to be a war movie. Maybe something was in the air, and there's a big castle in that, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, some kind of Nazi fortress or something they have to. But I'm not sure if the time in terms of Castle Keep, and like if he was right, Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane in 66. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's nothing to it at all. But then again, on the other hand, I also wouldn't be surprised if William Peter Blatty had seen Castle Keep, totally forgotten about it, but they were just things at the back of his brain, and
well, I think the Scott Wilson connection definitely, that seems like more than anything else, there must have been some memory of that.
But the reason I didn't clue you into all this before is because, like I said, I wasn't really sure if there was a blind alley or not, so I didn't necessarily want to send you off reading and watching things that you don't need to. But
I didn't know that there was this middle chapter to Blatty's Faith trilogy, right? I knew about The Exorcist, and I knew about Legion, right?
Yes.
Which was released as like Exorcist 3, right?
The film,
the movie version, which I've seen. You know, I'd seen both of them, and I'd seen Exorcist 2 with Pazuzu the Giant Flying Bee and the awesome Ennio Morricone score. But yeah, so this is and you know, Exorcist and Legion are different enough anyway that Legion doesn't really seem like a sequel to The Exorcist anyway. So this, having read this now, this also feels like not a sequel to The Exorcist, you know, in only the most broadest of terms. And yet they do seem of a piece in some strange way.
Oh, he clearly has things he's fascinated with, right? And he returns to again. I've not read Legion. I am keen to read Legion now, and then watch the I think Shout Factory put out like an alternative cut of Exorcist 3, which I think is closer to what William Peter Blatty wanted to make with that film, because because you know the studio took it away from him, and well, obviously they tried to turn it into Exorcist 3, right?
Yes.
I suspect it's still a fucking hot mess, but it might be more interesting than.
Am I remembering right that Brad Dourif is in it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And
he always brings it, you know.
Oh yeah. But yeah. So there's a castle full of crazies and a guy kind of in charge who's very indulgent.
Yeah, Colonel Vincent Kane, played by in the movie played by Stacey Keach, in a very simmering, boiling performance by Mr. Keach, who I didn't realize has a cleft palate until I watched this. I wonder if did I always see him with mustaches before now?
Yeah, no, he's always got that. He's always had that.
it's because it just adds in this movie. It adds a certain extra element to his kind of.
Right. No, that is genuine. That's his.
Okay, yeah, I assumed it was, but I was funny. Everything he must have always been more beardy in things I've seen him in. Yes, yeah, and so
it's a good bit of casting actually, because you wouldn't necessarily think of Stacy Keach for this role, right?
No, because he's so soft spoken in the he's great in the part of him trying to connect with these prisoners and well, not prisoners, I guess they are, whatever, the patients, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, he's really, and then yet the moments where his other side kind of comes to the fore, you can see he is truly terrifying.
That's a very satisfying scene in the book and the film, right? The bikers in the bar
at the end, yeah.
Especially,
well, I guess should we get ahead of explaining what's really going on? Because it's funny, I'll say, reading the book and having no idea about the reveal, and I didn't catch any of the numerous hints and like foreshadowing, because it's when you then know this and you go and watch the movie, I was like, oh my god, it's like constantly they're drawing your attention to the fact that he's not who he appears to be, and that he is a patient, right? That he's not,
right?
He's a patient himself, right? They they tell you, like, one character, says, oh, he's just Gregory Peck in this other movie where Gregory Peck is an inmate in an asylum.
There's that whole lunatics have taken over the asylum angle as well, right?
Yes. And Neville Brand is great in this as the.
Yeah. It's difficult to. What I realize now is it's really. I think we're right to have read the book. The book is 78. The film's 79, by the way. We're right to have done because it's almost impossible to discuss one
without the other,
right? Yeah. So.
But I guess what I was going to say is, for me, the one thing that's strange about the book, when I was reading the book, some of the kind of because it seemed funnier on the page, but also in a way more irritating as well.
Oh,
it was like, I was like, these annoying, hectoring, maybe mentally ill, maybe not characters, and I was just like, would you just leave this poor guy alone? And
well, also there's a lot of it as well, which is like you can almost feel William Peter Blatty thinking that's funny, or that's kind of like a smug kind of into it, which it somehow redeems itself by the end of the book, oddly enough.
Agreed.
It's quite, I had the same thing. I was like, this book's quite annoying. I'm wondering if I'm going to finish this.
Yes.
But then somehow it kind of pulls it off. But then again, it's really hard for me to separate the two. Like, I would have a hard time, like you said, you kind of have to read the book and watch the film. Or like, I find it very hard to.
Well, what I realized was when I then started to watch the film, and the musical choices and Stacy Keach's face, and like it was like it wasn't being played. I thought it was being played for this kind of like Harvard Lampoon kind of comedic value in the book, and then in the movie it's really not. There's a few scenes that are maybe played for laughs, but most of those scenes of like the mentally ill people kind of hectoring him and just seem intense and uncomfortable and tense. And I was like, no, and it's the same dialogue, but I was like, oh, this was maybe what he was going for, but he just didn't put it across to me, and I was misunderstanding what the tone here was.
It seems to me as if the final incarnation of this as a film, William Peter Blatty's finally arrived at what he wanted to do. I think, he couldn't really do it with the book, and you can almost imagine that he was hoping to do it, because the book reads a little bit like a screenplay at times anyway, right? And a good example would be, in the film, as played by Jason Miller, is the guy who wants to put Shakespeare's plays on for dogs, right? And in the book that comes across as a bit more like, isn't this a wacky idea kind of thing? But in the film, Jason Miller's so serious and intense about it, and it's like, this isn't funny at all. This guy's nuts. Like,
Yes, yeah, and
but
really,
very smart with it as well, right?
admirably passionate about
yeah,
this project. And
yeah,
plus his assistant is Joe Spinell,
as
whose
Spinell.
name is Spinell in the movie,
Yeah,
which I loved.
Yeah, great seeing. I always pleased to see Joe Spinell, especially
in anything.
But also in measured doses rather than
yes,
full on
in
Spinell.
90 minutes of maniac. Yeah,
exactly. Which me and Nick talked about. No, me and Ron talked about recently.
Ron talked. Oh, you guys watched? Well, I can't
Yeah.
imagine that would have been up Ron's alley too much. That's anyway.
Yeah. So and I mean, I think the for instance the scene with the bikers with Richard Lynch and Steve Sandor, that whole scene in the film is a bit of a masterclass in really ratcheting up tension and really getting you on side. Like by the time Stacy Keach turns around and
Snaps,
kicks ass, it's like, yep, you had that coming. Like you had, even though he's like,
and I haven't seen the end yet. I know what's coming
and throwing them against walls and stuff. Yep. You know, no, that's fine. You had it coming.
You haven't got to that scumbag. No, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I was reading some reviews of the film and the book, and somebody was like, it is like the gang from Mad Max, like the toe cutter suddenly shows up.
It's really well done. It's just it's paced just right. You'll see what I mean when I see it. When you see it, it's just the timing is just right. It's just
so far everything has worked in a way that, as I said, some of it didn't work in the book, but consistently works here. And I think, another actor who's doing an incredible job is, so I mean, I guess we'll explain really quickly what the big reveal of the story is. We've already alluded to this, but it turns out that Colonel Vincent Kane is not Colonel Vincent Kane at all. He is Colonel Hudson Kane, right? Or Killer Kane, who is a guy who's basically killed a whole bunch of people behind enemy lines and stuff in Vietnam, and has suffered this nervous breakdown because of this point of he's killed a kid, right? I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, it's something like that.
Yes.
And it's also cumulative. I think he's just killed so many people, he's kind of started to come apart, and then he has a particularly traumatic experience. He breaks down, and then he gets these papers telling him that are meant for his brother, who is actually an army psychiatrist, telling him he's to report for a new duty in this castle, and he just does it and shows up as though he's the brother. And then there's this other character who is supposed to be a medical doctor all along, who, as it turns out, we realize at some point is actually his brother. And so one part of the movie that was really effective was, and again, I didn't catch this moment because maybe they didn't show it, but there's a really powerful moment where basically he's so deep in this delusion that he is not Killer Kane, but his, psychiatrist brother, that he tells the story of himself, Killer Kane, to his brother, who he doesn't recognize as being his brother at all. And then when Ed Flanders leaves, he has this kind of breakdown outside. He bursts into tears, and it's really affecting. It's a really powerful, sad moment when you know. But that's the joke, is you don't know if you're watching the movie for the first time and don't know what the big reveal is. At that point in the movie, you don't know what's going on. Why is this doctor having this? But it's really well, I think
because it's not a short film.
You should see it twice, or you should read the book and then watch the movie, because it does work so much better when you actually know where it's all going.
And it's a 2-hour film, and like you said, with a lot of potentially very irritating characters constantly talking and barging into rooms and shouting and being difficult. So it could have been, like nails on a chalkboard, right? But it does have a cumulative effect. Like at the beginning of the film, at the beginning of the book, I was like, oh, this film's nowhere near as good as I remember it being. This is annoying. But then it definitely does have a cumulative power. And we should also mention, so the main kind of thrust as well, the main kind of debate at the heart of the book and the film is between the Stacey Keach character, who is trying to make an argument for God, basically.
Yeah, and good. That humanity is capable of good.
And Scott Wilson playing an astronaut who was supposed to go to the moon but didn't. And he's desperate, and he wants to believe that there's such a thing as goodness and a God. but he just can't see it, right?
In the face of all evidence to the contrary, in his experience. Yeah.
And he has this great kind of monologue of why he didn't go to the moon, because if you went to the moon, it wouldn't just that you'd be all alone, if there was also no God, then he can't imagine, like, that's the loneliest you could ever possibly be, right? If there was no kind of, and it's interesting as well, I think, because it's not necessarily, even though William Peter Blatty does believe, I didn't feel that it was necessarily a message that was being shoved down your throat. It's more, it's more about the debate than it is trying to come down hard on. And I'm not necessarily sure if Blatty is trying to convert you. He's just kind of laying out this theological debate, which clearly has fascinated him his entire life, right? And
yes, there's quite a powerful moment too earlier on in the movie and in the book where Cain is basically saying, like, is the only reason that we kind of like that we know that we were meant for something better, that we kind of, that our world is full of terrible things, and is the reason that we feel so bad about it is because we know that it's some kind of a fall from Eden, a fall from grace kind of a thing. That this is not where we're supposed to be as humans.
So even though this is literally a Feck, I still think maybe that, like I said, the ultimate incarnation of this is actually
the movie
film. Even despite that horrible fucking San Antone song from Rolling Thunder, right? Originally, I think. Could have lived without that. But again, I'm not quite sure what else I want to say, but really, it is interesting, but again, the film is the best version of it, but like you said, in a way, you can either watch the film twice or read the book then watch the film, which
one or the other, but
it's a fact, really, isn't it?
And then for those nerds who like their connected universes and all of that stuff and their metaverses,
I believe connective tissue is the
thank you, Clive. Yes, for people who love their connective tissue. So one of the parts of the rewrite was making this astronaut, Billy Cutshaw, the astronaut that Regan terrifies in The Exorcist and tells him he's going to die up there.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, apparently it is the same name in this redone, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, so that's that was the way that they
Blattyverse.
Exactly. Yes. It's the Blattyverse.
Yeah. So
Robert sorry, we should also say Robert Loggia is in this wearing a jetpack.
And Neville Brand.
Being the angry.
Moses Gunn dressed as Superman.
Yeah. There's much to recommend. This movie, a great cast, amazing cinematography. That also blew me. Just beautiful movie. You could just live in that space.
Yeah, those are sets as well. The interiors of the castle, they're all sets in Budapest.
I wouldn't have believed that. It's gorgeous. So yeah, I would recommend. If you have to choose, if you only have the time, watch the movie. Probably. Yeah. But if not, read the book, then watch the movie.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's such a slender volume. They take about the same amount of time to read and watch. So
yeah, for sure.
So
so are we done?
Yeah,
I think we're done.
Until next time.
Yeah.